Hello friends, this is Grief speaking. So I've had a couple people in the past ask me if I could do a room tour or like a backdrop tour. Grief is filmed, written, produced, all of that between this wall and this wall. So I guess we can start over here and just work our way through. I was going to clean up the clutter on my desk, but then I thought, why not make it authentic? So this is generally how messy it kind of looks on a basic day. This is the camera that I pretty much have been filming with. I usually have paper near, this is the little Albert drawing. I've been trying lately to not just listen to have my headphones on all day. So lately I've been taking the headphones off and I've been making mixtapes, and I'll listen to them mostly just for the novelty on a cassette player like this. And we can look at my cassette collection in a minute. So that's basically this is my workspace, and that's kind of that. This is a kind of a cool calendar I got where every month is a different cryptid, and this is gnome, and then you got, what do you got here? Shinlong, China, whatever. It's like different creatures each month. Play button. That's pretty cool. But here's the thing, one that a lot of people were curious about is everyone asked me, are you ever going to update or change the mask? You got the first Grief mask Mark 1 here. This is Grief Mark 2, or maybe I should call it 1.5. I did have a second mask completely made here. And as you can see, the main difference, besides kind of the texturing, I wanted to try to make it look more, old or used, is the eye. It would be really nice to be able to see with both eyes while wearing the Grief mask. So that was the main reason for wanting to redesign the mask. And instead of like a full spiral, I kind of did more of a, it's like a semi-spiral. It's a little more like angular. But there's a couple of huge issues with why this mask didn't work. And maybe I could put a picture up to show you the main issue was it looks really stupid. Now you could argue that this mask looks stupid. I get that. It's kind of a dumb mask or whatever. But the problem was something about the eye holes on this one didn't quite line up right. And when you use it when you can see two eyes, they're a little close together, and it just makes Grief look really dumb. That is the main reason why I never use this one. And also it's all my design problems here. This is like the mouth is a little too high up. This one, it's a little lower. I want to work with some like really good mask makers and maybe make a really cool like top of the line mask for Grief in the future. If anyone is a mask maker or, knows anything about the craft or has anyone you would recommend, let me know. But that's Grief Mark 2. That will never see the light of day in videos. Of course, you got to have a whiteboard with nothing on it. You got to have it there as if you have ideas and interesting things to write down, and then just leave it empty. Okay, so this is this was the old backdrop. If you go back, 6 months, a year, most of the videos on my channel are filmed in front of this wall of various printouts and stuff. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, that's just a classic German expressionist film. I've always really liked this poster. I like the film. It's a good film and it's very interesting and it's a cool one to look back on, but this poster is just really cool. So I love the gothic, like the gothic style of the character there. But what I get asked most about here is this picture. Everyone who sees this will always ask like, oh, did a kid draw that? Like, they think it's like art from, a preschool, maybe not a preschool, it's better than that, but from like, elementary school or something. And so they go, oh, this is a cool little kid's drawing. And then if you look up, Captain America saying, all right, I'm tired of all the sinners. And Howard the Duck says, yeah, let's kill them. All of them. Every one of them. So then people are disturbed when they actually read it. This is art by a music artist named Daniel Johnston, who maybe some people will know. He's sort of some people call it outsider music, but he kind of was like a do-it-yourself musician back when it was very hard to do. And he also essentially went crazy. He had a mental illness of some kind, and then it kind of seems like he did some psychedelic drugs and just went completely off the deep end. There's a great documentary called The Devil and Daniel Johnston that kind of goes over the history of this guy, but he also made a lot of weird art. And his art sells for like a ton of money. This is not an original This is just a print because I could never afford an actual original Daniel Johnston artwork. But I don't know, there's something about this one that stood out to me because it looks so innocent and then the language is so disturbing. This magazine or newspaper, I guess, was kind of near and dear to my heart because as a kid, anytime I went into a grocery store, I would hope that they would have Weekly World News on the stands. Basically, while I was waiting for my mom to check out, I would be looking through all the crappy tabloid magazines and just be hoping I would find a Weekly World News. It's kind of like a tabloid magazine for kind of bullshit, like insane stuff. It's like Bigfoot, aliens, and it's usually kind of funny. This is one of the most famous from the magazine, which is Batchild Found in Cave. And this character, Batboy, is kind of a reoccurring character in the Weekly World News like mythos. It was just so mind-blowing as a kid to find this magazine and be like, what is this? I've thought about doing a huge like breakdown or documentary about Weekly World News. I think that would be really cool. Maybe I'll do that on the second channel. This is another one I get a lot of questions about, which is, what is this basically? And a couple of people recognize it, which is a British TV show called The Mighty Boosh that aired in like the early 2000s. I saw it way after the fact, obviously, but it's one of my favorite shows. Not only do I think it's really funny, but it is such a weird, creepy, it's a bizarre show. Like, it's hard to explain. And probably the most famous thing, because it got so much traction online, is this character named Old Greg on the left, because there was a clip from the show, which was the first thing I saw from it, that was basically just Old Greg, who's this really hilarious character. And then that kind of sparked my interest, and I ended up watching the whole series. Escaped mental patient wreaks havoc, 12 or more feared dead. This is just the newspaper article of Halloween. So it's just Michael Myers, this is just a newspaper basically of that event. This is a little more subtle, but it's the picture from the end of The Shining. It's basically the last shot of the whole movie. It zooms in on this photo that's hanging up in the hotel, and you look close enough and you kind of see that the old keeper or whatever looks like Jack Torrance. It's a fun one because it's subtle, so like if someone's a Shining fan, they'll recognize it. If not, it just looks like some old photograph. And then of course you got Goldie Wilson. Come on, Back to the Future. Of course, I got a few guitars here that are literally dusty because I have not been playing very much, unfortunately, and I don't really have anywhere else to put them, so they're here. Some kind of loose crap on the ground here, but I've been lately collecting old cameras. So this is a box of just a bunch of old cameras, including a kind of this old Polaroid, which is pretty cool in all of its bulky glory. Okay, so let's move to the bookshelf. It's really a mess. It looks somewhat organized from a distance, but I actually have not really taken the time to like alphabetize or do anything like that. So I guess we'll work left to right, top to bottom here. This is just some random books. I got the D&D player's manual, kind of a D&D fan. These two books are really cool. I love behind the scenes stuff, especially about special effects. So this is just a making of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is still probably one of my favorite film trilogies of all time. And there's a lot of cool stuff there. This is actually a pretty old book about special effects that is really cool to flip through. I'm just a huge fan of early special effects, especially up through like the 90s before CGI hit. I'm not like anti-CGI or anything like that, but Cthulhu, I'm a big Lovecraft fan. I love cosmic horror. I think I mentioned in the Q&A video, it's, Lovecraft is sort of the birth of a lot of cosmic horror. So yeah, that's kind of a go-to. And then I got some like random loose books up here. The Shining. This is like a 70s copy from when the movie came out, but I don't know why I found it so striking. I found it in a bookstore and I just like the black on yellow. That's like the first Stephen King book I read and kind of set me off. Then Pet Sematary. So this is kind of funny here, these two books. So it just kind of summarizes my interest, which is Harlan Ellison, The Greatest Hits. So Harlan Ellison is like the sci-fi author. You probably know I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. That's like his most popular story. It got really popular online. On top of it, the other thing I bought, these are the two most recent books I bought. And the second one is a parody of Lord of the Rings from the Harvard Lampoon called Bored of the Rings, which is literally just Lord of the Ring puns the entire way through. So that kind of summarizes my interest right there, is like sci-fi horror and a crappy parody book. So I kind of mentioned in my Q&A Dragon Ball being one of the first manga that I ever bought. These specific copies I bought more recently because of how compact they are. You get 3 volumes in each one. And I basically bought, I don't have all of them, but I bought up to when it actually gets into Dragon Ball Z where Goku is an adult. So because my favorite, I don't know how controversial it is, my favorite part of Dragon Ball is actually when Goku's a kid and growing up, because the battles are all cool, but I like the adventure quality of the when he's younger and the earlier things before it became just always strong guy versus strong guy. Now Dr. Slump is less known. I'm sure like fans of Dragon Ball probably know it, but this specific copy is really old. Like I bought this a long time ago when I was a kid. One of the first things like I bought probably with my own money. Dr. Slump is from Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball, but it's all comedy, and it's really was a big influence on me comedy wise. It's just got such a particular sense of humor that you just don't find. Part of it might just be because it's Japanese, so you get like kind of something different than you would normally get especially as a kid reading it. It was just very different. All right, I'm doing this one-handed, so I can't quite fit everything back in. I don't know why I have this copy here. This is a one shot of Bobobo. It's like the silliest manga I've ever read, but it's very funny, like slapstick humor. If you're a fan of slapstick, like Bobobo is just nonstop like jokes. It breaks the fourth wall constantly. It makes fun of like other anime and all of that. So that's another really early manga I bought. Scott Pilgrim, I think I bought these after the movie. So I knew about Scott Pilgrim and maybe read one, and then the movie came out in 2010 and maybe 2011, something like that. But I think that's such a fun movie, and what a great comic series too. So I got that collection there. But then we get into horror manga. So most of this shelf is horror manga, or maybe all of it. Of course, we got Junji Ito stuff, these thick ass books that are taking up the whole shelf. Parasite, what's annoying about this is the whole series of Parasite, 8 volumes. After I bought them, I found out that they were releasing Parasite in color in these big volumes, and I was a little pissed off because I would have gotten the colored version if I knew those were coming out. So now I'm probably gonna end up buying both. Parasite was really influential into getting me back into manga, because what a lot of people think that, I'm really a huge manga fan and anime fan because I cover so much on my channel. But the reality is I was when I was younger, and I kind of got out of it, and because of the YouTube channel and digging back into some of these comics like Junji Ito and stuff, I actually got back into manga. So it's like, in a way, I'm like really a noob, but I found so many great stories. So I have to thank you guys for recommending what you recommend. Same thing with comic books. I really got back into comic books because of the YouTube channel. So I'm sort of naive, and I don't know, as considering I'm making videos on comics, I actually am like kind of refamiliarizing myself with those mediums. Stitches is interesting. It's art by Junji Ito, but it's actually like these short stories, and it's one of the ones I did not put in the Junji Ito because technically he didn't write the stories. He just did some of the art. And then Dissolving Classroom, I think, is underrated. Some people really don't like it, but it's actually one of my favorite little Junji Ito stories. That's a great one to check out if you're looking for a good Junji Ito. This is, I think, this is Soichi, one of my favorite series from him, and this one's just all in Japanese because I've been trying to learn Japanese, and I thought since I had already read through it in English, it would be cool to buy it in Japanese so that I could, work on reading Japanese, which I'm not great at. So Die Dark is a really cool series that I got into from doing the Disturbing Manga Iceberg, and I've thought about maybe covering it on the channel. We'll see. PTSD Radio I did cover on the channel. I did a huge breakdown of those videos. It's an interesting comic. It kind of just feels like a bunch of short stories thrown together that are all loosely following the same thread. These are really cool. I thought about covering these on the channel too. These are like basically adaptations of some Lovecraft stories, Shadow over Innsmouth and The Call of Cthulhu, but they're made in manga format. Pretty cool. And then of course we got the book, because I didn't know where else to put it, of No Longer Human. I did a huge video on No Longer Human, the Junji Ito adaptation. Over here we'll get back to the comics. So this shelf has probably doubled in size, like from before I actually started covering comics on the channel, and then since then I've bought a ton of comics. You can kind of see Beneath the Trees, Beautiful Darkness, Through the Woods, Everything is Fine, Johnny Hobo, Squee, and then Lost Dogs. I don't have this in any, like I said, this is actually a mess. I don't have this in any alphabetical order because I take so many comics out. I can't even fit them all in right now, actually. I got to redo all the shelves. because I can't fit Feral 2 onto the shelf. So you can kind of notice there's some comics here that I learned about and would buy just to see if they would work for the channel. And then it's always hard to figure out whether a comic is going to work for a YouTube video. And there's a few factors. One is length. If something is super long, I just, I can't dedicate 3 months to one comic. This is a comic called Upgrade Soul that I learned about from the Disturbing Manga Iceberg. And oh dang, I'm not gonna be able to fit that back in. I might do this one, but it's very long. So it's one of those things where it's like, if I do this, it's gonna be a 3-part series. And yeah, it's just difficult. The comics that tend to work best on my channel are things like Beneath the Trees. It's kind of a tight, compact story, or Beautiful Darkness, where I can cover it in like 30 minutes to an hour in a video. And it's not gonna have to be broken up into parts, and it's not gonna be too lengthy or convoluted. Of course, I've obviously broken that kind of rule before, because I've done like Everything Is Fine. That was like 3 long videos and more to come. So yeah, it's kind of abysmal, but this is pretty much my comic book collection right now. I have other comic books that just aren't on this shelf, but for right now, this is like all the stuff I bought the last few years. And then stuff that I had before, like, you can see a ton here, obviously, that I didn't cover on the channel. You can go right down below here. So this is, I started collecting VHS recently. I think you can see these in the backdrop of the videos. I started just getting horror movies, whatever I could find, basically. That's why it's kind of a mix-up of different movies here. This was a cool find, House on Haunted Hill. This is actually a public domain movie. You can just watch this anywhere on YouTube, but it was cool to get the VHS version because I'm a huge Vincent Price fan. Young Frankenstein, another good mashup of like 2 of my favorite things is Young Frankenstein, because it's slapstick comedy, Mel Brooks comedy, but it's also actually pretty true to the genre of horror, especially of the time period. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Bride of Chucky. Chucky's one of my favorite horror series ever, so I'd like to get all of those on VHS, or at least up to Seed of Chucky. A couple of steel books here. Dracula, Invisible Man. And then this is a cool steelbook of Evil Dead, which is one of my favorite franchises. I got a lot more VHS back here that are just like Disney movies and stuff. Just like I said, I've pretty much just been buying up a ton of VHS when I see them. Eventually it'd be cool to have like an entire shelf dedicated to VHS. Okay, let's move over here to this part of the shelf. This you can see in the background of the videos. This is just a cool working Panasonic tape player and radio. I mostly got that because I have the little cassette player and I've recorded mixtapes on it, but it's so small. This hopefully is going to be better quality if I record more mixtapes in the future. And then speaking of which, we got a little bit of a tape collection over here. So this is Daniel Johnston, I already mentioned. I basically bought all of his tapes, and this guy was so prolific that he made so much music. So that's not even half of it. Like, you can see that entire stack of tapes, other than the Maxwell's, are those. And then for whatever reason, I started kind of accidentally collecting playing cards over the years. So I got Castle in the Sky, one of my favorite Studio Ghibli movies, and then just a bunch of other random playing cards. And as I mentioned, there's mixtapes. So this is just a Miyazaki mix. I just made the art and tape. It's actually really fun to make J cards for cassettes, so I kind of made this one myself. And then of course I got like In Case It Rains. I just drew the little art on this one, volume 1, and it's just kind of sad-ish music that you know to listen to on a rainy day. So that's a little hobby that I didn't mention in the Q&A that I have picked up, is making my own mixtapes. So some people asked me in the Q&A what were the first comics I bought, and I mentioned already in the Q&A the Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump, but these, as far as comic books, I kind of forgot about, but it's kind of amazing I still have these, which are some of the first comics I ever bought anywhere. This is a Venom and Punisher crossover. And then I think these were kind of random. I just bought them at a flea market or something when I was young. But the one that always stands out to me is this series called Zen the Intergalactic Ninja. There's obviously like Superman and Spider-Man and Marvel and DC and these big comics, but I remember seeing Zen the Intergalactic Ninja and going, Zen, the Intergalactic Ninja. That's gonna be my comic. You know, I'm into Zen, the Intergalactic Ninja. This is a signed copy with a certificate of authenticity, I guess. I don't know if that's actually worth anything, but yeah, I got a couple Zen, the Intergalactic Ninja comics when I decided that was my bag. You know. This one's got like a signed playing card in it. And then just a bunch of random, you know, comics, Doctor Strange or whatever, just stuff that I bought at the time. This is kind of really nostalgic for me. These aren't really old ones, but Game Informer is a magazine that I got when I was a kid. And at the time, you know, it was just one of the ways to learn about new games. And I would read every issue, like front to back, was so into it. These are from maybe 10 years ago. You can see Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Yeah, I had been collecting these for a long time. There's still some issues that I can remember reading over and over again as a kid. I remember the issue about the first Borderlands game. I remember the issue about Skyrim, just reading those over and over, being like, wow, I can't wait for these games to come out. And it's fun to read back through comics like this Breath of the Wild one, because it's sometimes interesting to see what the view or thought on a game was before it came out, because now everyone knows Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's like a lot of people's favorite Zelda game and stuff. But so for instance, you can look at the preview page here. These are just little preview sections, and it's funny reading it because like, oh yeah, there's this weird indie game that's coming out now. It's like Cuphead is kind of a household name as far as gaming goes. So it is kind of fun to look back on these like a decade later and just see how some of these games became really big. This is essentially just a junk area. I'm glad that you can't see it on camera, but just random stuff that I like have laying around. These fun fact about these is like back in the day I had when I started a Patreon, which I don't have right now, but at one point I had a Patreon, and the early thing was you could join the Patreon and you'd get a sticker and a note. At the time, I just didn't really get a lot of patrons, you know, so I think I maybe got like 4 or 5 or something. But yeah, there's less than 10 people out there who have a Grief mask sticker and a handwritten note and doodle by me, and I couldn't even tell you what I wrote or what was doodles on it. But yeah, I mean, if people were really interested, I would definitely go back to doing a Patreon thing, and maybe doing stickers or something would be fun. I just found this at an antique shop, which is really weird. It's from Beyond Thunderdome, Mad Max 3, 2 songs from the movie. Or really the only one song. It's just got the instrumental version. I don't really know why I have this. I guess my friend is an actor in Los Angeles, and he got some screeners. You can see how old this is. And it's just kind of a cool thing to have as like this Stranger Things screener. If we go down here, we have more junk. It's very hard for me to get rid of stuff that I've collected at one point. This is a lot of my childhood, which is Xbox 360, was the console I probably played the most. Yeah, a lot of these games were played over and over and over again. Of course, I have a little Blu-ray collection. I mentioned this a while back on my Instagram, but this very collection may be the start of Grief, like the nucleus of it in some way. So when I was really young, they always had these DVD sets where it would have a bunch of like public domain movies on them. And I got this, I don't know if I bought it or got it as a present or something, but it's 50 classic horror movies in black and white, and I watched a ton of these. It really was the start of my interest in horror as a genre. You can see like Nosferatu, that was like a big one for me. The Last Man on Earth. Many late nights spent watching this movies from this set. So this is maybe one of the oldest collections or DVDs I have. All right, so just to leave no stone unturned, there's a few things you can kind of sometimes see in the background of the videos. I got this cool VHS video camera from the 80s, which I think works, but the only issue I have is that it's jammed and I can't get the thing to open, and I don't want to break it. So I'm looking into that. I actually used to collect, oh, this is pretty dusty. I used to collect old consoles a lot. So this is a Sega Genesis, and this is a PlayStation 3, and then this is an old chord organ. This used to be in the background in a lot of the old videos. This was in the old backdrop. It's just a little light up like clacker, but you can see how long it's been since I changed this because of the fact that it says disturbing manga. I used to put the name of whatever the video was I was doing, And I haven't done the Disturbing Manga series in probably a year and a half. So that's the state of the office at the moment. You know, I'll probably expand it. So maybe every year or every couple years, I could kind of redo it and just show more of what I've collected and what's going on in the background. I think not that far from now, I'm gonna have to get a third shelf because I'm already running out of space for comics and I already have too much other crap on here. So anyway, yeah, that's the background. Thanks everyone for watching, and subscribe to the second channel if you want more content. This is like very behind the scenes, like very behind the scenes, but I'll be posting a lot of other stuff soon on the second channel. So hope you guys enjoy it.